Story from Bright's African Tale, a story of blood, sacrifice, and destiny set in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, Nigeria, the pineapple seller. Ifeoma carried her wooden tray on her head, the way her mother had taught her when she was 7 years old. She had learned to walk straight, to keep her neck still, and to smile at every person who passed by her without buying anything. That was the hardest part, smiling. Because some days, by the time the sun was overhead and the Yenagoa heat was pressing down on her head and shoulders, she had sold nothing, and the smile felt like something she was forcing onto her face from outside. On this particular afternoon, she was on the road near the Ekeki market area. Her tray was almost empty. There had been 8 pineapples that morning when she left the house before 5 o'clock. Now there was only one left. One large, ripe pineapple sitting in the middle of her tray, its skin yellow-green, its crown of leaves standing up like a small king on a wooden throne. She needed to sell it. That one pineapple was the difference between her going home with something or going home with nothing. She had already set the price in her head. 500 naira. That was fair. That was what the pineapple was worth. A black SUV slowed down near her and stopped. The window came down. A man in a well-ironed white agbada looked at her tray from inside the cool, air-conditioned car. "How many do you carry?" he asked. "Only one remains, sir," Ifeoma said. She lifted the tray a little so he could see better. "Fresh one, sir." "Give me that one," the man said. 500 naira, sir." The man gave his driver a signal. The driver stepped out, handed Ifeoma a 1,000 naira note, and waited. Ifeoma searched her waist pouch for change. She had 200 naira and 5 naira notes, and nothing else. "I don't have a complete change, sir," she said honestly, looking at the driver. 300 naira remain. The driver took the message back to the window. There was a brief conversation inside the car. Then the window came back down. "Keep the change," the man said. "Just be buying fresh pineapple every day. I will find you if I come down this road again." "Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir," Ifeoma said, her voice rising with genuine feeling. "God bless your family. God bless every place you go today. Thank you." The SUV moved on. Ifeoma held the 1,000 naira note and felt something warm move through her. She had made more than double what she expected from that last pineapple. She said a short prayer under her breath for the generous man, then turned to walk home. She did not get far. Chukwuemeka stepped out from between 2 parked KK Marwa tricycles. He was tall, with a face that looked permanently displeased, as if the world owed him something and had not yet paid. He had been watching. "Give me that money," he said quietly. "Emeka, I said give me the money. You smile as if you know somewhere. What? He was my customer. He bought my pineapple. That is all. Give me the money." He grabbed her wrist before she could move. She tried to hold on to the note, but he twisted her arm and took it from her. Then, because she had not handed it over quickly enough, because she had resisted even for those few seconds, he hit her. Not on the face, where people would see. On her back. A hard, flat slap that made her stumble forward. A shout went up from a nearby pepper seller. 2 men sitting under a mango tree turned to look. Chukwuemeka walked away quickly, putting the note in his pocket. Ifeoma stood still for a moment, her back burning, her tray still balanced perfectly on her head by habit, even though her hands were shaking. The prince of Kolokuma, the man in the white agbada, was called Obiora Alagoa. Most people in Yenagoa called him Chief Alagoa, but in the Creek communities to the north, in the villages that sat along the Kolokuma River, he was Obia Erekes, the crown prince. He was not a man who wore his title like a chess piece. He wore it quietly, the way a person carries something heavy that they have learned to balance. He had a wife named Adais. She was elegant, educated, and furious with him on most days. That evening, when Obiora came home and found her eating the pineapple he had bought, Adais spoke without looking up from her phone. "This pineapple is good. Where did you buy it?" "From a girl near a Ikeki market." "Which supermarket?" "No supermarket. She sells on the road, carries a tray." Adais looked up now. You want the boys to go and find a roadside fruit seller. Why not? The pineapple is sweet. You said so yourself. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, Ade said, waving her hand. If I eat pineapple every day, every doctor, every dentist, every bone specialist will run from my sight forever. She laughed at her own joke, then stopped when she saw that Obiora was sitting quietly, not laughing. What is it? She asked. I signed the agreement with Ekitiyama Construction, Obiora said carefully. The Kolokuma housing project. Adaze put the pineapple down. We agreed we would not work with Azator. His buildings are rubbish. His materials are cheap. People live in those apartments and the roof starts leaking in 3 years. The money is real, Obiora said, and the houses have not fallen. People are still living in them. Obiora, Adaze's voice had changed. It was low now, careful. You forged my signature. Silence. I checked the document today. That is not my signature. That is a copy of my signature. Adaze, you forged my signature in a business we both own. I am a director of this company. I own shares. You cannot sign my name on any document without my knowledge. Obiora stood up. I did what I thought was right for this family. What you thought was right? Adaze's voice was rising now. Do you want me to tell you what I did that I thought was right? I spread a story that the company was failing. I made it look like shares were worthless. I made several of your original partners sell at low prices. I bought those shares and gave them to you so you could have majority control. I did that for you. I did that so that when people talk about this company, your name is first. And this is how you repay me, by signing my name on contracts with a man we agreed to avoid. You manipulated the market. That is fraud. And your forged signature is not a fraud. We are both wrong, Obiora, but at least I did it for us, not just for myself. They stood on opposite sides of the living room, looking at each other, and the pineapple sat on the table between them, half eaten and forgotten. The next day, Obiora told his driver to take the same road. He was looking for the pineapple girl. He found her near the same spot. She was standing with her tray, selling to a woman in a wrapper. When she turned and saw him, there was a moment of recognition. Good afternoon, sir, she said. Good afternoon. He looked at her tray. She had pineapples, smaller ones, freshly cut and wrapped in nylon bags. How much for everything? She told him. I will buy everything, he said. For 20,000 naira. Ifeoma stared at him. Sir, everything here is not even up to 10,000 naira worth. 20,000, he said again. His driver was already counting the money. Ifeoma accepted it. She was saying thank you, genuinely, her voice full of feeling, when Chukwuemeka appeared again. He grabbed her arm roughly. Bring that money! What is wrong with you? You collect money from men like this, and you laugh with your whole teeth. Let go of her, Obiora said from the window. But Chukwuemeka had already pulled the money from Ifeoma's hand and shoved her sideways. Obiora's door was open before his driver could react. Go after him, Obiora said, stepping out. His 2 aides ran. Chukwuemeka ran. There was a brief chase through a narrow passage between 2 buildings, and then it was over. Chukwuemeka escaped, but the money was gone. Obiora knelt down where Ifeoma was sitting on the ground, her hand on her arm where Chukwuemeka had grabbed it. Your name? He asked. Ifeoma, she said. Is that man your boyfriend? No, sir. She shook her head slowly. He is just someone who wants to marry me. He said he is helping me. He housed me. He hits me whenever he gets angry. He takes my money. Where are you from, Ifeoma? She told him her story. She was from Sagbama, a town on the other side of the Nun River. She had come to Yenagoa with her friend Gozi, whose aunt lived in the city. The aunt's husband said there was no room for Ifeoma in their house. Chukwuemeka, who was a distant relative of someone in the compound, had offered her a room in his place. And slowly, over months, the room had become a trap. So now you are homeless, Obiora said. Maybe I will go back to Sagbama, stay with my mother. And then what? Obiora looked at her carefully. A girl like you, with this kind of spirit, you deserve more than that. Let me ask you one question. Do you want to become something in this life? Ifeoma looked at him for a long moment before she answered. The house of trouble. Obiora brought Ifeoma to his house that evening. He told Adaeze before she saw the girl. This was deliberate. He sat Adaeze down, told her about the beating, about Chukwuemeka taking the money, about the girl's situation. He said, I felt something in me that said I should help this person. I could not explain it then. I still cannot fully explain it now. But she's downstairs. Adaeze stood up immediately. She's already here. You brought her here, and now you are telling me. I am telling you. That is why I am telling you now. This is not telling me, Obiora. This is informing me that something has already been decided. That is not the same thing. You do not know this girl. You do not know her background. You do not know if she's sick. You brought a stranger into our house. I followed my heart. That heart of yours is very stupid. It is the same heart that missed many good opportunities because it was following somebody's feelings. And now it has followed a roadside pineapple girl into our home. Adaeze walked toward the door. Send her away. She stays. The cook and the other house staff watched this conflict from a careful distance. Adaeze swept down the stairs, looked at Ifeoma standing awkwardly near the gate with a small bag by her feet, and spoke loudly. Leave this house. Obiora came behind her. She stays. She will sleep in the staff quarters. We will talk about this later. He turned to the head houseboy, a quiet man named Dokubo. Put her in the spare room in the back. Make sure she eats. Adaeze turned to him in the hallway afterward, her voice low and cutting. Are you trying to get a second wife because I cannot give you a child? Obiora stopped walking. He turned around slowly. What did you say? I said what I said. Muna Chimso is my child, Obiora said quietly. I married you when she was 1 year old. I have loved that child since the first day I saw her. And you are asking me this question? Then why are you bringing fine girls into my house? If you want to help somebody, help the ugly ones. Help the sick ones. Help the old men on the road. Why is it always young girls? Obiora looked at his wife for a long time. Good night, Adaeze, he said. Then he walked away. Good night, she said to him. Then quietly, because she could not stop herself, I love you. I love you too, he said without turning around. What the night did. The house staff liked Ifeoma from the start. Dokubo taught her the layout of the house. The gate man, Saribo, showed her where to get water. The older cook, a kind woman named Mamatari, gave her food that first night and sat with her while she ate. Munachimso, Adaeze's daughter, who was visiting for university vacation, did not like Ifeoma. She was 23, beautiful in the sharp way that people who know they are beautiful often are, and she did not hide her feelings. You think you can take my father's attention and just stay here like that? Munachimso said to Ifeoma one afternoon, blocking the corridor. Ifeoma said nothing. I am talking to you, market girl. I am here because your father asked me to stay, Ifeoma said carefully. I am not competing with anyone. Adaeze, when she was in a certain mood, took her frustrations out on Ifeoma in ways that Obiora never saw. She made Ifeoma do unnecessary errands, then criticized how they were done. She examined Ifeoma's clothes one afternoon, pulling each item from her bag and calling them indecent, too tight, the wrong color, inappropriate. She made Ifeoma stand at a corner and recite answers to questions she could not possibly know. When Ifeoma got an answer wrong, Adaeze called her stupid. When she got one right, Adaeze pretended not to hear it. One day, Adaeze locked Ifeoma in the toilet for several hours without food or water. Inhale, Adaeze said through the closed door. That is your punishment for crying at my dining table and making my husband pity you. Ifeoma sat in the dark and did not make a sound. What held her together was Mamatari, who knocked on the toilet door an hour later and slid a key under the gap. Go to my room, the old cook whispered. Madame has gone out. And Dokubo, who told her, they want you to break and run away. If you stay, they lose. If you go, they win. You have to decide which one you want. The night she left, Ifeoma left in the night. She did not tell anyone. She packed her things quietly, left the room she shared with Mama Tari, passed the sleeping quarters of Dokubo and the others, reached the gate and found the key hanging on the nail by Saribo's chair while Saribo slept. She opened the gate, slipped out, closed it behind her, put the key back through the gap under the gate and walked. She walked until she found a kiosk that was still half open, and she sat behind it until 4 a.m. Then she joined a bus that was heading towards Sagbama. On that bus, 2 men saw her money when she paid the fare, grabbed what they saw, and pushed her off at a junction 10 minutes from where she had boarded. She had hidden some money in her underwear. She used that to take a different bus. She arrived at her mother's house in Sagbama as the sun was coming up. Her mother, Amaini, was not as she had left her. The small provision shop they had built together along the main road had been destroyed 6 months earlier by local government workers who tore down all the shops built near the gutter. There was no compensation. The family had lost its only source of steady income. Amene had been surviving on what little neighbors gave her. When Ifeoma found her, she was stealing bread from a bowl on the kitchen table, not because she was hungry. She had money hidden in a cloth under her mattress, enough to buy bread 3 times over. She was stealing it and holding it the way a child holds a toy, confused about why she was doing it, unable to stop. Ifeoma watched her mother and felt a cold, sad understanding settles in her chest. This was not just poverty. This was something happening inside her mother's mind. When Obiora woke up and found that Ifeoma was gone, he called the whole household into the compound. He listened to each person's story. They all said the same thing. They had not seen her leave. They had been sleeping. "Let me understand this correctly," Obiora said, standing in the middle of the compound, in his house with slippers and agbada, looking at each face in turn. This girl who does not float, who does not fly, who uses 2 feet like every other human being, packed her bag, walked through this compound, reached the gate, opened the gate with a key that was supposed to be with Saribo, went through the gate, closed the gate, and not one person in this compound heard a single sound. Nobody answered. "She is a thief," Adaze said from the balcony. "She left in the night like a thief." "What did she take from this house?" Obiora asked. Adaze did not answer. "I want to know what she stole." Silence. "She stole nothing," Mama Tari said quietly. Adaze turned to look at her. Mama Tari looked at the ground. Obiora went back to a keki market later that day and asked around. He found Ifeoma's friend Gozi, who sold peppers near the entrance. "She was in Yenagoa this morning," Ngozi said carefully. "I think she's gone back to Sagbama. Her mother is not well." The local boys near the market crowded around, asking questions, accusing, shouting. One man insisted Obiora had trafficked her. Another said he had heard rumors. Another wanted to fight. Obiora stood in the middle of all of it, very still, and let them shout until they were tired. When it was quiet, he said, "Dokubo, we are going to Sagbama." What Amaine knew, Ifeoma was sitting outside her mother's house, peeling groundnuts when Dokubo's car pulled up. She stood up slowly when she saw who was inside. Obiora stepped out. He looked at the small house, the cracked walls, the narrow compound, and said nothing about any of it. "How's your mother?" he asked. "She is resting," Ifeoma said. "She is not well, sir." "I know. Ngozi told me. I am sorry." They sat outside under the small shade of a neem tree and talked. Ifeoma told him everything that had happened in the house. The toilet, the clothes being burned, Muna Chimso's boyfriend who had tried to get her to buy him drugs, then told Muna Chimso a lie about finding her buying pregnancy pills. A Daisy going through her things. Obiora listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "I did not know. I should have known. I was not watching closely enough. It is not your fault, sir. I brought you into that house. That makes it partly my responsibility." Then the door of the house opened and Amaine came out, walking slowly, holding the door frame for support. She saw the car. She saw the man sitting with her daughter. She stopped. Obiora looked up. and for a moment neither of them moved. Then Ameni said one word, barely above a whisper, Obiora. He stood up. He looked at the woman's face the way a person looks at a place they once knew very well after many years away, reading each change and finding beneath it something familiar. Amaine, he said. Ifeoma looked from one to the other. You know each other. Amaine did not answer. She was holding the doorframe with both hands now. Then her legs gave way, and she sat down heavily on the step, and Ifeoma rushed to hold her. The truth about the oath. It took an hour before Amaine could speak clearly. Ifeoma made tea. Dokubo waited by the car. Obiora sat across from Amaine in the small sitting room with its faded calendar on the wall and its one good chair covered in blue plastic. Amaine told him what had happened. She had grown up in a village near Kolokuma. Obiora had been the crown prince studying in Port Harcourt. They had met when he came back for a burial ceremony in her village. They had fallen in love the way young people fall in love when they are certain the world will cooperate with their plans. They had sworn an oath, the kind that people in that part of Bayelsa take very seriously. They pricked their fingers, they spoke words in front of the Iroko tree at the edge of the village. They called on the ancestors to witness. They promised to be together. Then Obiora went back to his studies. And a girl named Goami, who had grown up in the same village as Amaine, had gone to Obiora's family and said that Obiora had tried to force himself on her. The accusations spread through the village like fire in dry grass. Obiora denied it. He came home, he explained, he begged, but the village believed Goami. Goami was like a sister to Amaine, had eaten from Amaine's family's pot, and had slept in Amaine's mother's bed. If Goami said it, it must be true. Amaine broke the oath. She told Obiora it was over. She told him she could not be with a man who had done such a thing. He left for London, ashamed, angry, hurt in a way that does not heal quickly, and Amaine, who did not know she was pregnant, eventually married another man, a businessman from Lagos who had come to Yenagoa for oil company contracts. She moved to Lagos. She gave birth to a girl. She named the baby Ifeoma, but the Lagos businessman grew suspicious. Ifeoma was born 7 months after the wedding. He had a DNA test done. Ifeoma was not his daughter. He drove Amaine out of the house. Amaine went back to searching for Obiora, but Goami, who by now knew what she had done and feared the consequences of the truth coming out, told Amaine that Obiora was dead, then told others that he had gone mad, then that he was in prison, then that he had married and moved to Canada. The stories kept changing to keep Amaine from finding the truth. Without a husband, without income, without peace, Amaine began to fall apart from inside. Not a big dramatic falling apart, a slow one, like a building that is rotting from the foundations up. I broke my oath, Amaine said in the small sitting room in Sagbama, and I've been paying for it since then. I knew. In my heart, I knew that Goami was lying, but I chose to believe her because everyone else believed her and because I was afraid. Obiora was quiet for a long time after she finished. Then he said, Ifeoma is my daughter. Yes, Amaine said. Obiora stood up. He walked to the door of the small sitting room and stood there with his back to both of them, looking out at the dusty compound. Ifeoma sat very still in her chair. Everything that had happened, every strange feeling she had felt in that house, every time she had looked at the man who was kind to her and felt something she could not explain, now had a name. Papa, she said, and surprised herself by saying it. Obiora turned around. He crossed the room and held his daughter's face in both hands, and they stood like that for a long time without speaking. Obiora did not allow anger to make him rush. He went back to Yenagoa, went to his private doctor, explained what he needed. DNA tests were arranged. Results confirmed what Amaine had said. Then he made a trip to the village near Kolokuma, where Goami still lived. Goami was not difficult to find. She was a thin, nervous woman who had never left the village. Her life had not been kind to her either. Her mother was blind. She had no husband. She spent her days in a small compound growing vegetables and selling them. When Obiora's car entered the compound, Goami knew why he had come. She had been waiting for this for 20 years. Dokubo and Obiora's aides waited outside. Obiora sat across from Goami in her bare sitting room and said, "Tell me what happened." Goami told him. Adaeze had come to her before Obiora married Adaeze, before any of it. Adaeze had been a girl from another community who had set her eyes on the Crown Prince of Kolokuma. She knew Obiora was already engaged to Amaine. She could not fight that directly, so she went around it. She found Goami. She knew Goami's father owed a debt he could not pay. She offered Goami 100,000 naira to tell the village that Obiora had tried to force himself on her. "I said yes," Goami said, without looking at Obiora. "My mother was going to go blind without the surgery money. My father's debt was going to cost us our house. I said yes. I took the money. I told the lie." "And the surgery?" Obiora asked. "My mother's eyes were not saved." Goami looked at her hands. "I took the money, and I destroyed your life, and Amaine's life, and even my own life, and the surgery still did not work. My mother is still blind." There was a long silence. "You will come to Yenagoa with me," Obiora said. "You will repeat this in front of my wife." Goami nodded. She had been ready for this for a long time. "The reckoning," Obiora called Muna Chimso back from Accra, where she was studying. She came on the next flight, confused and worried. He sat his entire household down in the large sitting room. Adaeze sat in her usual chair, composed, watchful, reading the room the way she always did. Goami told her story. Adaeze listened without expression. When Goami finished, Adaeze said, "All of this is the past. I am your wife. I am the one who is here. What does any of this old village story change?" "It changes everything," Obiora said. "It means my daughter grew up in poverty while her father had everything she needed. It means a woman I loved was broken by a lie that you paid for. It means the mother of my child spent 20 years lost and suffering because you wanted what belonged to someone else." Muna Chimso was crying. "Daddy, what about me?" Obiora looked at her. "Muna Chimso, I love you. I have always loved you. But your mother needs to tell you the truth about your biological father. I am not him, and I think you already suspected this." Muna Chimso looked at Adaeze. Adaeze looked away. Ifeoma sat quietly through all of it. She had not said anything since they all sat down. Everyone had been watching her, waiting for her to say something sharp, something triumphant. She had earned that right. When Obiora asked her, "Lita, what do you want me to do with these people?" The whole room went still. Ifeoma looked at Adaeze. She looked at Muna Chimso. She looked at Goami, who had sat through all of it with the posture of a person who has been carrying a very heavy thing for a very long time and has finally been allowed to put it down. "I want forgiveness," Ifeoma said. "That is the only revenge I want. Forgive them, Papa. Forgive my mother too. She was young. She was afraid. She made the wrong choice. But she's been paying for it every day since then." The room was very quiet. "You can be angry later," Ifeoma said to her father. "Right now, please, forgive them." What came after? Adaeze and Muna Chimso left the house that week. Obiora filed for divorce. It was not done with anger, but with the quiet tiredness of a man who has held a wound closed for too long and finally accepts that it will not heal that way. Mama Tari, who had been fired months before for warning Obiora about what was happening to Ifeoma, was brought back. Obiora gave her the money to open a small restaurant near the main market in Yenagoa. She named it Tari's Kitchen, and it was full every afternoon. Amaine came to Yenagoa. She moved into the guest room of the family house while she recovered. A doctor was found who understood what was happening to her mind, the grief and guilt and fear that had built up over 20 years like water behind a crack in a dam. It would take time, but she was in the right place now. Goami went back to her village. Obiora arranged for a new doctor to see her mother's eyes, and though there was nothing to be done for the blindness itself, the woman was made comfortable, and Goami was given enough to live on without the constant grinding of poverty. Obiora did this not because Goami deserved a reward, but because Ifeoma had asked him to be generous, and he was trying to be the man his daughter believed him to be. Ifeoma was enrolled in the university. She registered for law. People who heard about it said she was too old to be starting university, that she should have begun years ago, that 24 was not the right time. She ignored all of it. She had learned in a year of carrying a pineapple tray on her head, of sleeping in borrowed rooms, of sitting in a dark toilet and deciding not to cry, that the right time was the time you had available, and the only wrong time was never. On her first day of school, she put on a plain blue dress and her best slippers and took the university shuttle from the gate. Dokubo wanted to drive her. She said no. She preferred to arrive the way everyone else arrived, in a crowd, anonymous, new. She sat in her first lecture, a large hall with wooden benches and a ceiling fan that turned too slowly, and listened to the professor talk about the history of law in Nigeria, its roots and its contradictions, the way it had been used to both protect and harm people across the country's history. She took careful notes. Outside, the city of Yenagoa moved through its morning the way cities do. Boats on the creeks, market women setting up before the sun got high, Kekemawa drivers honking at roundabouts, children with school bags walking in pairs. And somewhere in the Ikeki area, a girl with a wooden tray on her head was moving through the traffic with fresh pineapples, calling out to passing cars, smiling at the ones that slowed down, watching the ones that did not. Life continues. That is the thing about it. It does not stop because something has been resolved. It keeps going. The trick is to keep going with it, carrying what you have been given, putting down what has been taken from you, and moving forward in the direction of the person you are trying to become. Ifeoma knew this. She had known about it for a long time. She had just needed a place to stand while she figured out the rest. Now she had that place. She turned the page of her notebook and kept writing. The end of the story. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Make sure you drop your comment and share your thoughts with us.